Howdy ho, Maplers, and welcome to the final Explorer Mage, Ice Lightning. I'm definitely glad I saved Ice Lightning for my last Explorer. If I had done this character before doing Bishop, before doing Fire Poison, I don't think I would have had nearly as much fun as I did with either of those two, because Ice Lightning is pretty far and away the better Explorer when it comes to training. And now, potentially even better for bossing. Its most recent buffs to Lightning Orb made its burst quicker and more consistent, as well as final damage changes for Reboot benefiting it dramatically, and Fire Poison also getting nerfed at the same time. So there's a chance Ice Lightning might actually just be the best Explorer right now. For the gear, all the same stuff I usually use on my 250s. My Meso accessories, since if I'm going to be trading all these 250s, I need Meso. It's always good to have it. My wonderful Fafnir wand, which thank God Laura uses a wand. I get to use it some more. I'm just using the Mysteria Explorer set in place of the Zakum accessories because there's not that much stat difference, and those are the two pieces of Face and Eye that I'm planning to use for my Store Force once I'm done with this character and transfer all the gear off. Everything else otherwise, not too insane. Ice Lightning has really good base damages, so you don't need the most funding in the universe. For your inner ability, ideally you want this attack speed plus 1 line, or if you plan to use a wand, I think you can take boss damage 20. Could be wrong on that though. Second line, you definitely want to have buff duration, because again, it's an Explorer Mage. Buff duration helps your Infinity uptime, and Infinity is what all the Explorer Mages are balanced around, unfortunately. And for your third line, probably percent damage to status affected enemies, since you definitely apply a lot of status ailments on Ice Lightning. No doubt in that. For the V Matrix, right in its first spot, where it should be, decent holy symbol. 2 out of the 3 Explorer Mages need this. The third one, probably still want it, just for posterity's sake. EXP, drop rate, couldn't ask for a better decent skill. And then the holy duo of Ice Lightning's mobbing power. Ice Age and Spirit of Snow. We'll start off with the banger. Ice Age is still, even after its nerf, it is still one of the best map clearing abilities in the game. It only has a 15-second uptime now instead of 30 seconds, but it is still very insane at what it does. This will single-handedly clear maps, like the smaller sized ones, or it'll just hold a large section of the map if you're trading in medium to large sized areas. It is absolutely fantastic. It also is one of the best loot timers in the game, because it's going to be full clearing the entire time you're walking around, resetting your summons, everything, and you get to loot the map because it's got 15 seconds of uptime. That's perfect for a lot of areas just to get a good circle in and clear it out. And Spirit of Snow. Surprisingly, I like this heal more for its bossing than I do for its mobbing. It is a decent summon. I feel like it attacks a little slow though. It doesn't, for its size, it's not able to hold a section of a map, at least on Frenzied Spawn, by itself. I usually ended up pairing this with Lucid Soul, because those two combined could almost put out as much work as Ice Age could for its duration. So when you combine it with Lucid Soul, it's really solid for the mobbing. For the bossing, this thing does a surprising amount of damage. With how slow it attacks normally, I didn't expect this thing to be in the top half of damage for bossing. It's really quite strong for a summon. And it may have a little bit too long of a cooldown. I think for 30-second uptime, I think if this was 90 seconds, it would probably be perfect. It would be easier to weave this in between Ice Age and your Lucid as a summon to rotate around while training. But at a 2-minute cooldown, you're pretty much double cycling Ice Age before you get to use this. So, primarily Lucid Soul just fills the spot for this. She's a more convenient cooldown, and they do about the same mobbing. She definitely has her uses, in maps where you need more area coverage than just Lucid Soul can handle. She's definitely vital there, but She's not insane for mobbing like I thought she would be, but she definitely is insane for the bossing damage, which surprised me. For the boost nodes, there are two sets that I made because Ice Strike, surprisingly, is actually a very good mobbing option, but the trios are Frozen Orb, Chain Lightning, and Lightning Orb. And then your second trio is Elkwines, Blizzard, and Ice Strike. Now, Ice Strike is the optional one here. It is your second mobbing skill to Chain Lightning. Your ideal bossing setup is going to have Thunderstorm on there instead of Ice Strike, but Chain Lightning, as it is currently, has a pretty horrendous bounce range. It's pretty much the only problem I have with Ice Lightning is how bad the bounce range on Chain Lightning is. So beyond like Latulent, I almost entirely stopped using Chain Lightning and fully adopted into the Ice Strike training methods. I remade my trios just so that I could use it because Ice Strike is so much more consistent as a mobbing skill. It does have a more limited horizontal reach, but its vertical reach is 100% consistent and it works for so many maps that I don't feel right not recommending it. But at the same time, it's pretty expensive to remake two trios just for one skill. Like, Ice Lightning doesn't have enough skills that they want boosted that you're gonna be able to make a third trio just to fit Ice Strike in without breaking up the perfect trios for bossing. So it's in an awkward spot where you have to, like, sacrifice excess nodes for the convenience of being able to use Ice Strike. I'm hoping, since the Explorer update is coming out here in mid-December for KMST, I'm hoping that they increase the bounce range for Chain Lightning for Ice Lightning Mage and make it actually a good mobbing skill and not just a horrible RNG mess, so that you don't have to make the choice of having perfect trios or breaking them up to have a reliable mobbing skill. But as it is currently, Ice Strike is a very good skill, and I would highly recommend it if you can afford to, or if you don't really care too much about bossing and just drop Thunderstorm entirely. Thunderstorm is okay for mobbing. It's kind of filling the spot that like Flame Haze does for Fire Poison, where it's just going to be killing mobs around you with elk lines. But for bossing, it is very consistent damage. It's not a whole ton of damage, but since it has 100% uptime on the summon, this plus Elkwines plus like Blizzard's passive while it's on cooldown is just a ton of supplementary damage that's going to push your DPM up just that little bit extra, way more than Ice Strike would for bossing. For the other skills, you've got Bolt Barrage and Jupiter Thunder. These are pretty much your bossing skills. Bolt Barrage does have some niche uses as a mobbing skill because it has a very tall hitbox and it can travel through the map. However, as is the theme with the lightning skills for Ice Lightning, it is kind of inconsistent. Like, there is a very slim gap between strikes while this thing is moving through a map where it just doesn't hit mobs. And more often than not, it would miss mobs for like when I was doing my Monster Park runs, it was extra noticeable because I would use this to clear like the second stage of Stronghold, just travel across and kill all the mobs, but it would consistently miss like one or two mobs in the middle of the map. Like it would just pass through them. Maybe that's just Monster Park, because I wasn't super paying attention to it when I used it as a mobbing skill, because I kind of just always threw it out as a filler. Like if I needed extra time to finish looting the map and Ice Age had expired, I would throw out a Bolt Barrage just to keep clearing while I finished picking up items. So it's not the most useful for mobbing. For bossing, if you can get a boss in the corner, this thing does a lot of damage. Unfortunately, unless the boss has a teleport skill to put himself in the corner, Ice Lightning really doesn't have a way to get a boss in the corner. So it's fairly inconsistent for that, as well for stuff where you can't move the boss, like a Punch King or a GPQ. You're completely at the mercy of where the boss is, if this is going to do a ton of damage or not. It does do subsequently less damage the more times it strikes, So not getting every single hit isn't the worst thing in the world, but when you can get every hit on a mob, it's a whole bunch of burst damage. It's a whole bunch of burst damage. So it's really good for situations where you can get stuff in the corner. If you can't get them in the corner, it's not bad. Generally, you can get between like 2 and 3 strikes on a boss before it starts bouncing out of range, so you get the most of its upfront damage. It's just that its total damage is very dependent on if you can get a boss in the corner, which is completely out of your control. Not a huge fan of that. And then there's Jupiter Thunder. This is pretty much entirely a burst skill. You just throw it out, latches onto a mob, and starts doing some goddamn damage. And it does a lot. A lot of damage. It also boosts your lightning skills aside from itself, so your chain lightning while you're bossing is going to be doing a ton of damage. It also has this nice little effect where for every attack that Jupiter Thunder didn't get off, it refunds you 3.4 seconds off the cooldown. So if you're like using this for dojo and you overburst a boss, Jupiter Thunder isn't going to be on its full cooldown. It's going to have that generous reduced cooldown so that you can use it quicker and get the full value out of the skill, which is insanely nice on a burst skill. It's super good. I don't really have any problems with this. It doesn't really have any mobbing use, but as a bossing skill, this thing is solid. This has the consistency that Bolt Barrage doesn't for bossing, and that's wonderful. Then of course, your duo of decents. Decent speed infusion, decent sharp eyes. Crit rate, crit damage, attack speed, who doesn't want those? Throw them on when you can get them. And of course, the will skill. Get it for completing the Espheris questline. Decent mobbing, decent bossing. Who could ask for more? It's also another summon that you can throw in between your Spirit of Snow's cooldown to help out Lucid with mobbing in certain sections of the map where there might be too many mobs for her to handle on her own, so it works out great. Then Blink. For me, it's just for the passive effect. Magic attack plus 10's pretty handy, but it's also just like a guaranteed hover skill for all classes who don't have it, or a random teleport. It's very handy for bossing. For my uses though, for training, it's just a nice little range booster. And unfortunately, since it's an Explorer Mage, Unreliable Memory. Probably the single worst skill in the game in my opinion. RNG dictates your damage on this class. If you ever want to know how much RNG dictates your damage output, just go look at my Bishop dojo run, and then go look at my Fire Poison dojo run. Your whole bossing experience hinges on Unreliable Memory giving you good RNG, and that is horrendous. Because this is so make or break for your class. It could make you the most overpowered bosser in the game, or it could make you do less damage than a bishop. It's all luck and I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I hope for the Explorer updates they completely remove this skill and replace it with a skill that would be more in line with a mage class, like Reliable Memory maybe, where you could like lock in one specific skill from your set and then just like double its cooldown so you have a guaranteed cast of it, rather than casting this on cooldown every 13 seconds, praying to RNGs that you get infinity, because it feels horrible. I hate it. This skill is the sole reason I will never main an Explorer Mage. Like, despite how much fun I had on Ice Lightning and Fire Poison, I will never main these classes so long as Unreliable Memory exists. It is a god-awful mechanic. It is up there with Sticky Keys for single-handedly ruining classes. It's fucking terrible. And then, Urdinova. I highly recommend getting Urdinova. You might be thinking, why? Ice Lightning has its own class bind. Ice Lightning's bind skill is their iframe. That's not terrible at first, but once you get into harder bosses where you need that iframe, where you can't just like teleport out of the boss's attack, you want to have this off cooldown. You only want to use this as a bind if you know you have the damage to kill the boss in that bind. So when you need it for that iframe, you definitely need to have Urdinova on. It's super handy. You definitely don't want to be giving up your iframe just for the bind unless you know you're not going to need it, because freezing breath isn't the shortest cooldown in the universe, so you don't want to be wasting your one and only class iframe willy-nilly just to bind a boss when you have access to a free bind like Urda Nova on the V Matrix. And for the training, Ice Lightning is very, very quick at training. Shocker to nobody who's played the Explorer Mages pre-4th job, Ice Lightning is definitely the best of them at mobbing. For 200 until 205, I stuck it out here in the Spirit Urdas. It's a smaller map, so it works good with Ice Lightning summons. My general setup was setting Lucid Soul or the Spirit of Snow on one side, teleporting over to the other, and casting Ice Age on cooldown. While Ice Age is up, it will full clear the map by itself, and Lucid will pick up any stragglers over there on the left side of the map. Once Ice Age ends, you want to drop your Spirit of Snow on the side that Ice Age was on, a little bit farther into the map because Spirit of Snow has quite a large hitbox to it, and then from here, you just throw your Ice Orb over to the left side of the map, teleport up, clear those mobs, Ice Orb on cooldown, teleport up, clear the mobs, Ice Orb on cooldown, teleport up, clear the mobs. When your Lucid Soul is down, if there are any mobs that spawn in this far left corner, they're not going to be cleared by Ice Orb, but it's not so many mobs that you're going to lose a lot of EXP, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. And that'll get you to 205, no problem. And it'll get you into an even better training area. You'll practically double your EXP rates. For 205 until 215, we head on to Reverse City in the Hidden Research Train. As with most classes that train in the Hidden Research Train, we want to set up our summons on the left side of the map, so your Spirit of Snow or your Lucid Soul go over here, and then you're going to be standing on the right side with this big cluster of platforms. As always, Ice Age on cooldown. Skill is crazy, crazy good. So you want to have as much uptime with it as humanly possible. It's very, very good. Make sure your Elquines and Thunderstorm are active for when Ice Age ends. And then, just like before, Ice Orb to the left, and you want to be standing on the right side of this middle platform. And you just chain lightning. Luckily enough, these platforms are close enough together from the middle here to the bottom that your chain lightning will actually bounce down there occasionally. If you're not getting enough good RNG on chain lightning, you can use Ice Strike to clear these instead. It's pretty darn good. A lot of your EXP is coming from just your summons, not so much your chain lightning, but it's handy at clearing the few mobs that Ice Lightning summons don't already take care of. A lot of Ice Lightning's mobbing is coming from rotating your summons, not so much you actually killing mobs with Chain Lightning in these early levels, which is perfect, because I don't like the RNG on Chain Lightning. And that'll get you to 215, and on to your next area in Yum Yum Island, the Hidden Iliad Field. If you have her, Lucid Soul on one of the sides, and as is the theme, stand up here in the center of the map so you get as much coverage as possible, drop down Ice Age, and watch the whole map die on spawn. Oh, dude, I can only imagine how satisfying Ice Lightning must have been back when Ice Age had a 30-second uptime. Even at 15 seconds, it is one of the best mobbing skills in the game. Snow Witch on cooldown on the side opposite where your Lucid Soul is. And then for Hidden Iliad Field, because these platforms are nice and compact and close together, you can just stand here in the middle and chuck out an Ice Orb on cooldown to clear up the stragglers over towards the side Lucid is on. Not too many mobs spawn off farther than the edge of this platform, so your Ice Orb is actually going to be clearing a majority of the mobs in this map. And then once your Lucid's off cooldown, you just drop back down to that corner, set her down. Once you get back to the middle, drop Ice Age, and then just rinse repeat. While there is a gap in your Spirit of Snow, just start throwing your Ice Orb to the right, and you use Chain Lightning to the left to clear up these stragglers. This map isn't as generous with Chain Lightning bounces. Some of the hitboxes on these mobs are a little bit shorter than the others, so it's not always going to bounce down, but it's enough that it's not going to ruin your EXP rates. It's It's a very good training area. You can stay there honestly until 225 if you want to, but I would stay there until 220 because at 220 you have a very, very nice option. Rev 3, one of the lazier areas, one of the better feeling areas too. It's a staple map at this point for training to 250. It's always been good since its inception. For this map, as always with Rev 3, you want to set your summons on the house because up here in this little top left corner, mobs can get stuck over there and they will take spawn from the rest of the map. So on cooldown, Lucid Soul or Spirit of Snow, whichever one you have. If you don't have a Lucid Soul to throw in when Spirit of Snow is on cooldown, you can Ice Age on this side of the map, but since I have my Lucid Soul, I tended to Ice Age on the right. And while they're both active, pretty much full map clear while Ice Age is down. It's very, very good. It'll full clear everything, feels really nice. Since you're a mage, your soul damage actually does damage, so Lucid is more than adequate to clear the house. And then when Ice Age ends, you just throw your Ice Orb behind you. As with Hidden Iliad Field, Ice Orb's hitbox is generous enough to hit 3 platforms. And while Lucid is about to expire, just swap out for Spirit of Snow, drop back up to the middle, and keep on chucking your Ice Orbs over to that side. There will occasionally be times where your Chain Lightning seems like a good mobbing skill and it actually targets your first mob below the platform you're standing on. But again, that's horribly inconsistent, so if you already have the boost node for Ice Strike, you can use Ice Strike here instead. Just chuck your Ice Orb off to the side and then just teleport Ice Strike back and forth. If you're wondering why I'm not using the teleport mastery, by the way, I found while I was training, it might just be because I did Bishop and Fire Poison before doing Ice Lightning Mage, I'm kinda used to the bad teleport range, and having the vastly increased range on Ice Lightning makes it so I get like less consistent movement on smaller platformed maps. This is very noticeable in like Celis, we'll see once we get there. But I kind of got into the habit of just using the shorter teleport range instead. So that's why I'm not using the teleport mastery. But that will get you up into 230, and it is very good. You can honestly stay in Rev 3 until 234 if you want to. If you're not quite strong enough to transition over to Arcana just yet, don't feel too bad. That map is going to give you good EXP all the way up into the mid 230s. And into the lazy training area for Arcana. CLP. Some things never change. Ice Lightning is still quite good. Oh, I believe this guy is training here, Soul Leaf. Still quite good at clearing CLP on spawn without too much hassle or effort required. Unfortunately, CLP is still the ever popular map. Oh, cool, we actually found one. For CLP, unlike most Ice Lightnings, I tended to set my summons on top of the map so that I could clear the bottom 2 platforms myself. It just felt more consistent to me, and the clear was a little bit better in the EXP. This place you can use Teleport Mastery, and I did for a lot of my levels. Using the base Explorer Teleport is a little bit worse here. On the top here you got Snow Witch and your Lucid Soul. With Frenzied Spawn, too many mobs spawn up there at once for one of them to clear everything, so having them stacked on top of each other is very handy. And then just you teleport and Ice Strike along the bottom. It is when I got here at 225 where I realized, yeah, I need to remake my trios for Ice Strike because this map is 1000% more consistent with Ice Strike than it is with Chain Lightning. It is dramatically better. If you're strong enough to kill the mobs without a boosted Ice Strike, that's perfect, but if you're in a position like me where you need the boost damage to actually use this as a reliable mobbing skill, this is where it starts coming in handy. These level ranges are where it's huge. Then of course, Ice Age on cooldown from the middle of the map. It is the best loot timer in the universe. It will last long enough for you to slowly meander through, make sure you're picking up every item in the map. Once you're back on top, set down your Lucid Soul or your Spirit of Snow, or both, depending on what's on cooldown and what's off cooldown. Get back down here to the middle, and then you just return to teleporting left and right with Ice Strike. And honestly, it's very, very, very good. If you want to keep training without the teleport mastery turned on, I would stand here in the middle of the map, throw your Ice Orb to the right, and then you just teleport left and right twice with Ice Strike. The reason you're throwing it to the right of the platform is there are more mobs that will clump up on this side of the bottom platform than there are mobs that will like clump up in the left side of the top or the middle platform, so it's just slightly more efficient to throw it to the right if you're not using Teleport Mastery. But this is one of the maps where you can leave Teleport Mastery on the entire time and it's not going to negatively affect your EXP rates. So, the choice is yours. The map is very, very good. It's very consistent. One of the better classes for clearing it consistently. Between your Spirit of Snow and your Lucid Soul, all you have to focus on is those bottom two platforms, which is wonderful, because if you're using Ice Strike, you barely need to focus on them at all. The only thing you're paying attention to is your Ice Age cooldown. You just pop it on cooldown, do your loot cycle. By the time you're done looting, you're ready to set down your summons, and then you're back to killing mobs. It has wonderful flow to it. The rotation is gosh dang perfect, but it's still CLP. Don't expect the best EXP rates in the universe there. You train at CLP because it's easy, not because it's good. And you can stay there until 244, or heck, you can stay in CLP until 250. I've done it in the past on the old EXP curve, so it's even easier now on the new EXP curve. It's entirely up to you. If you have the damage to move into Celis, I would highly recommend Celis, but if you don't, Arcana is still a perfect place to train until 250. Your EXP rates aren't going to be that low comparatively. However, the best map for getting to 250 nowadays, you guys saw it coming. It's my favorite map in Celis. It's PD4. And oh boy, it's another map that just feels so gosh darn perfect for Ice Lightning Mage. Your two summons, Spirit of Snow and your Lucid Soul, are going to go on top here. As well, since you're now into Celis, you have access to your Will skill. You can also throw him in as a summon. Set them on opposite platforms. Only Spirit of Snow has a large enough hitbox to actually hit both edges of the top platform. Lucid doesn't, so you want to set them apart so that they're not chaosing each other. And then just you on this bottom platform are going to be teleporting left and right and just ice striking mobs. They might start clumping up on the corner, which is awkward. This is definitely the map where you'll notice that Teleport Mastery is often detrimental. Because it's a much longer range, you teleport very, very close to the edge of these platforms. So if you're watching something on the side, it is not uncommon to fall off this platform very easily while using Teleport Mastery, or just get into a position where you can't do your third teleport because you're already too close to the edge of the platform. The game just won't let you teleport because you're an Explorer Mage. As always, Ice Age on cooldown. It'll never hit all four platforms, so I would recommend just doing it there from the middle, as that's where the most mobs in the map are. Then just use the portal at the bottom to teleport up. Reset down your summons since Snow Witch is on cooldown. Drop down Will skill on the other side. And by golly, by the time you're done setting up your summons, you're right back down to the middle and you can return to your rotation. This is definitely the place where I was using my base Explorer teleport range the most. It just felt way more consistent. I never fell off the middle platform teleporting left and right, even if I wasn't paying too much attention to Maple while I was training. It was super, super consistent, at the expense of you're not clearing like the one or two mobs that get into the far corner of the map super consistently. If you do want to clear those consistently and use the little teleport, just chuck out an Ice Orb. The hitbox on that is very good, and since it goes right onto the very tip of the platform that it's sliding along, it'll always hit mobs no matter which corner you throw it into. It's a nice filler skill to make sure you're killing as many mobs as possible. And that map will get you on into 250 super quick. Like 120 bill per hour off EXP events quick. It's very, very good, very consistent. The only minor drawback is, since there are more platforms, it is a little bit slower to loot than CLP, so you have to be a little bit more precise with your movement while you're looting, but it's nothing too crazy. Since Ice Age is a 60-second cooldown, you're not doing like full map loot cycles. You only have 60 seconds worth of drops as opposed to a minute and a half. So even just normal pets will be able to pick through those items in the time it takes you to get back to the middle. Ice Lightning's mobbing is definitely the best of the three explorers. Like, if you have a really, really good cooldown hat, Fire Poison isn't that far behind, honestly. While I was training Fire Poison, it never really felt that bad as a mobber. I definitely saw the potential where if I had a cooldown hat for my mages, it would be a pretty solid mobber, but it's not bad even with just base cooldowns. However, Ice Lightning is just that much better. It has the summons, it has the uptime on its mobbing skills. It blows the other two out of the water in consistency and flexibility. It's also got the improved teleport range from its toggle, so it has even more flexibility for larger maps. You're not limited by your short teleport range in a lot of areas. Ice Lightning feels really, really good to train with. It's super consistent, it's super flashy, and it's very, very fun to train on. For the bossing, though, despite how strong Ice Lightning feels currently for bossing, now that your burst is much quicker, you're not stuck holding down Lightning Orb for 9 seconds to get your proper burst damage out, it feels really strong. But I can't shake the feeling that Fire Poison just feels that much better to boss on. Which I guess it works, since this is an explorer. You have access to the open job advancement system. So if you want to focus on bossing, job change to Fire Poison. Want to focus on mobbing, job change to Ice Lightning. That's kind of what the explorers have at their benefit, which is why this is such like a perfect set of characters. You have Bishop for support, Fire Poison for solo bossing, and then Ice Lightning for mobbing or for bossing. It's a wonderful setup the Explorer mages have. There's no real downside. No matter which one you choose, you never choose wrong, because you can always change halfway through. What else do we got? For the bossing, Fire Poison does feel really good to boss with. Its low cooldown burst is wonderful, but Paralyze sucks. It's like a staple these characters have. Paralyze and Chain Lightning both suck. Their ranges aren't great. So you kind of have to get right up in a boss's face to do your optimal damage. Chain Lightning as a bossing skill isn't too bad. Bosses generally have larger hitboxes, so your Chain Lightning is able to find purchase with its attacks a little bit easier than for bouncing to mobs, so it's not bad. Ice Lightning definitely feels the least outdated for the Explorers. It has that improved teleport range, it has oodles and canoodles of mobbing, its bossing isn't that bad. The only real problems I have with Ice Lightning Mage are, again, unreliable memory exists. The Explorer teleport logic isn't ideal. If you don't have the exact length to get your full teleport off, you just can't teleport, and that feels really bad. Elquines and Thunderstorm honestly should just be toggles. They're both 100% uptime summons. There's no reason not to have them out at all. Like, the only time you would want them off is for, like, Urda Spectrum for your Vanishing Journey dailies, but that's so inconsequential in the grand scheme of things. I see no reason why they shouldn't be toggles. Like, Thunderstorm has a 300% uptime compared to its cooldown, which is just stupid. It doesn't even make sense why this skill has a cooldown to begin with that uptime. It's really awkward and dumb. And Elquines is just 100% uptime. There is no cooldown, so why not make him a toggle, right? Some problems with the training, though. This could get fixed with the 64-bit client, but there are some times where Ice Age super slows the game down and turns it into a frame ratey mess in larger maps. Like, I wanted to test out to see how Ice Lightning would perform in Outlaw Street 2. This class has the mobbing potential to clear Outlaw Street 2, but there is just something about Ice Age that just completely destroys the game. Like, it would take me from standard 60 FPS Maple Story down to like 2 FPS Maple Story while Ice Age was active in Outlaw Street 2. It was horrifically bad. Like, even through that horrendous lag, Outlaw Street 2 was still providing really good EXP rates, but until we get the 64-bit client, or until, like, Ice Age gets a fix maybe in the Explorer update, I wouldn't recommend Outlaw Street 2 because just how laggy and bad it felt for me. I mentioned at the start, I think Snow Witch, or the Spirit of Snow rather, has too long of a cooldown Honestly, even if they hit the damage a little bit, if they just dropped it to a 90-second cooldown, it'd be a lot more flexible as a mobbing tool than it is currently. Only having it up every 2 Ice Age rotations means that you're pretty much stuck in maps where you can stack it on top of Lucid, because your Lucid Soul is the only consistent summon that shares the cooldown with Ice Age, to the point where you can properly use it in rotation throughout the map. It's just awkward to fit into maps if you're using it to control a section by itself, because it has such a long downtime to it. Once you get the will skill, it's a little less bad, but then you run into even more awkward cooldown watching, so it's not ideal. Ice Strike being an alternative mobbing skill to Chain Lightning is good currently, but I hope that's something that they address with the Explorer updates so that you don't need to do this. Like, as nice as Ice Strike is, I feel like Chain Lightning shouldn't be so horrendous that you need to use it as a main mobbing skill beyond 5th job. It feels really bad to have to break up your perfect bossing trios just to be able to mob in a lot of these areas. It's a nice mobbing skill, but it definitely shouldn't be your only mobbing skill. I really hope that they do buff the bounce range to Chain Lightning quite a bit, because as it is currently, it's not great. It's inconsistent. It's short ranged. It's not a great mobbing skill, and since it is your mobbing skill and your bossing skill all in one, it really should be better than it is. It does a lot of damage, which is good, but it's just not consistent or reliable as a mobbing skill. And then really my only real problem after that is that your bind skill is your iframe. That always feels awkward, like for classes whose iframe is their burst skill or their iframe is their bind skill. It feels horrifically awkward because you want to use your bind, but you don't want to use this long cooldown iframe that is often more important and vital to your bossing experience than the bind itself. I wish they would like break the bind and the iframe apart into 2 separate skills so that Ice Lightning had access to its bind itself as a class skill, but without having to sacrifice their iframe. That would feel really nice. But that's been Ice Lightning. That's been the Explorer Mages. All 3 of them are done now. I honestly wasn't sure if I was going to do Ice Lightning right now, because I wanted to wait for more of the Explorers so that I could see the KMST updates. This might be the shortest lived training guide on my channel, depending on how much and what gets changed, but I feel like Ice Lightning is the least outdated feeling Explorer that I've played so far. It definitely has the least problems, so I feel like it's the one class that might not get changed that much. So I decided, heck, let's gamble a little bit. Let's do Ice Lightning, finish off the Explorer Mages. I'm glad I did. Ice Lightning was really fun. If it wasn't for Unreliable Memory, honestly, an Explorer Mage would be pretty high up there on my list for potential mains. I really enjoy the bossing of Fire Poison Mage. I love how it feels. The flow for bossing feels great. Cooldowns, like, the cooldowns work in harmony so that you're just bursting constantly, setting up damage over time abilities and then blowing them all up at the same time, doing massive chunks of damage always feels good on Fire Poison. And now that I've trained Ice Lightning as well, I know what good mobbing looks like for an Explorer Mage. So having the flexibility to flip between the two at will would be perfect for me if I decided to main Explorer Mages. But as they are currently, I refuse to main an Explorer Mage as long as Unreliable Memory exists. It is three Explorers down, all of them, and Unreliable Memory is still the worst mechanic among any of them. It is horrible, it is god-awful to use, and it is RNG that dictates your damage, and that just doesn't feel good for bossing. So, as much as I like the Explorer Mages, definitely isn't going to be a main for me, unless they remove Unreliable Memory. But that's been Ice Lightning Mage. If you have any questions about Ice Lightning Mage, about my journey for all classes 250, or about playing MapleStory in general, feel free to ask down below. I make it a point in these videos to answer any and all questions you guys might have, because I love talking about this game. It takes me a long time to level all these classes to 250, We'll be getting a guide out for every class as I complete them, so don't worry too much if your preferred class doesn't have a guide. It's only a short ways off. But this has been Ice Lightning Mage. This has been the last Explorer Mage. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you next time.